give you something you like. Give me mashed potatoes, and I'll turn on the light.
My name is Liz, and I directed a film called The Waterfront, which is about a post-industrial black city on the verge of bankruptcy and at risk of losing their water supply. When I was traveling around the world looking for a water struggle that I thought would bring about the interconnectedness between race, class, gender, and the environment, my search stopped in Highland Park, Michigan, where you had some of the poorest people in the United States who are located by the largest body of water in the world and yet have these exorbitant prices, cannot afford water. And it brings about the issue that water scarcity is not just about drought, it's about politics and the decisions on who gets to decide on our public resources. I made the film because I'm really interested in this term called environmental justice, which connects race, class, gender to environmental issues. Most people have thought about issues like water or food crisis as environmental issues, but really they're social and political issues. And the timing, I think, is key because we're seeing gas prices explode. We're reading the New York Times every day, reading about these food crises, and water is on the horizon of something that people are going to be waging struggles over, and how to come up with sustainable ways of maintaining our resources is of critical importance to a black city in Detroit, like Detroit, as well as Baltimore, Maryland. I make films to instigate both conversation, dialogue, and political action. And so we're using the film strategically in cities all around the Great Lakes to bring social justice organizations together with faith-based organizations, together with labor groups, groups that are confronting the same issues but may not be talking about what they have in common. One of the things that water does is it's bringing alliances together, people who've been working on political issues but maybe haven't worked together. So it's bringing about new alliances, students, labor organizations, environmental organizations. And I find this really exciting because I think that the way that we're going to address the environmental crisis, which of course has its social and political aspects to it, is by working together. It's a really unique time for a political filmmaker like myself because this is a low budget film. I made the film under a budget of $20,000. And previously, with such a low budget film with very little money for outreach, it was really hard to get the word out. The equation is that for as long as you spend a time making the film, you should spend about 4 times that amount of film getting the film out there if you care to connect politics to filmmaking. And the internet has opened up so many possibilities in terms of getting the film out. What I like to call it is connecting online with on-ground organizing. And so there's an incredible amount of new initiatives, ways that people are working really strategically, reaching people online, but then connecting it to very real grassroots organizing. So for example, we're going to be traveling around the Great Lakes, and we have a wiki site. And on the wiki site, which as you know is kind of like a public bulletin board, just like Wikipedia, but we're calling it Wiki Water. And we're going to be putting up all the local officials and what their positions are around water politics. So we're going to use the wiki as a kind of public bulletin board to connect film screenings with local politicians and where they stand. So I think it's an ideal opportunity for those of us who work with very low budgets to make use of the sort of open space that the internet has provided for us to connect to each other and make very valuable connections between on-ground political organizing and lots of people all over the world who use the internet as a public archive.
Give me something I've heard of. I'll give you something you like. Give me mashed potatoes, and I'll turn on the
that really interests me as what I call an engaged filmmaker, which means that I don't make films just to tell a good story, but I make films to powerfully connect issues to political organizing. And I think a lot about how do you engage people? How do you get people past a passive viewing experience into doing something? And so this is something we've really been working on with this film, is how can you use the momentum that a film can create in bringing out audiences to then tell them about the political work that's going on all over the country? How do you use that energy, that passion, the emotions that come up from a screening to take the next step and get somebody beyond that? So participatory filmmaking is a word that's circulated and used a lot on the internet, but I think it's really challenging, and I think you have to arrive at a screening and really not just be prepared to answer questions about how I made the film, but how I hope you will apply the things that you saw in the This is what it's like when you're interviewing a filmmaker.
You're talking about
Yeah.
not just how you made the film, but talking about not just how you made the film, but other.
Yeah, so engaged filmmaking means that sometimes you involve people in the production. You have them help tell a part of the story, you respect a lot of different perspectives, but it also means working with audiences and figuring out ways that you can meaningfully connect their lives, the particular situation of Baltimore, Maryland, to the situation of Highland Park. Because Highland Park is a black city in crisis that's on the verge of bankruptcy, that's on the verge of losing its most valuable resource, which is water. But what are the connections with Baltimore, Maryland? Since I showed the film last night, all sorts of people came up to me and said, well, my water bills have risen, and I had a really hard time negotiating this. Municipal water systems all over the world are in a state of crisis. So it's important as a filmmaker not just to make the film, but to figure out ways to meaningfully connect the themes that come up in the film to the experiences and to the lived experiences of audience members. So participation, community filmmaking is all about how to meaningfully engage audience members.